active storytelling, I was really thinking about today in the world as everything is speeding up, as we're beginning to have this new relationship with technology and AI, we are having new ways of learning what it is to be human together. And storytelling it is a collaborative, connective activity, and it's done through relationship. We know how dangerous it is when you just talk story to yourself, right? Does anyone else get a little batty when you just go, you just talk story to yourself, and you can convince yourself of all kinds of things that aren't real, and that's why, we want to make sure that we share our stories with other people. But, in all joking aside, we're animals and we are in a constant state of relating. So even though I'll be doing the majority of the talking today, I am watching you, I am listening to you through your body. And my intention for this is to really create we all have our metaphorical roles that we play in life. And I want to invite you for a moment to consider, what you do in your world, maybe for work, maybe for play, maybe as a hobby, and think about the metaphorical expression of what that is. And an example of this is I'm a key. I know that I'm a key and I unlock the door into the realm of sacred storytelling. That's one of my jobs and roles, right? Sherry's an amplifier. I love this. So I really want to invite you all to really think about what is it that you're doing behind, like in the mythic realm, another expression, another way of storytellers. We're gardeners. We're planting seeds. We're planting seeds in people's consciousness. And so it's a great relationship. We are of service. We are serving people the nourishment for their soul. It's a sacred task to be a storyteller. So I really want to invite you into considering what is your role that you're playing out, no matter if you're washing the dishes or talking to, a little person, or, it's your job in life, you're always doing it, but there's some aspect of you that this is your role. This is what you're doing. And so I want to continue to invite you to put that in. So Fred's a connector. You are a connector with the strings. Of course you're a connector. I love it. Jason's a mirror. That's no small role. Deborah is a teacher of what if. Oh, we all need more of that. Diana is a generator. Is a conduit. And Melissa, oh my gosh, Melissa, thank you. I just read the things right there. So thank you. I'm going to try to put Melissa in my brain every time I see the word Jason. And lovely. I love the friend connections. Okay. Okay, here we go. So Reva's an illuminator. Tracy's a healer. Diana is a messenger. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So we're beginning to step into the aspect of seeing us in a state of wholeness. We're used to the mind, body, spirit conversation, but in the storytelling sense of wholeness, we get to come into that, seeing that, yeah, we're humans, and this is a world belief, right? There's a soul living inside this body, and that soul is also having its own expression through life. And sometimes it's really hard to understand the soul's expression through life when all you can see is the human aspect of it. The soul's doing all kinds of stuff back there, and sometimes the soul wanted to learn something, and so it picks what looks like to humans a really muckety muck bummer of a hard road to go. But the soul's like, yeah, I'm learning this great thing. I'm like, going through the journey of life. I'm God, wow, the initiations. So as storytellers, one of the things that we get, when we live as story beings. That's what we are, right? We're beings, human beings, not human doings. And stories allow us to step into that beingness in ways that few places allow us to be in that way now. And so when we're just playing with this one little game for those of you who just came in, we were playing with the metaphoric expression of who we are in life, and what role we play. And we have illuminators, we've got healers, we've got mirrors, we've got keys. someone in here, I'm sure, is a roof, it creates, or is a great canopy that, creates space and shelter for others, right? And this, when we know this aspect of ourselves, it allows us to stand even more fully in the truth of what we are as we talk story. So that is not in the planned talk for today. Something about you and your unique alchemy evoked that kind of conversation. So let's dive in. Let's dive in. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and to really give yourself a moment. Oh, look, we've got cheerleaders and bridges. Look at these amazing people. Close your eyes and just notice your body, and invite you to breathe, and breathing into the bottom of your belly, but just noticing your posture. Are you slumped? Are you leaning back? Are you leaning forward? And what if this, continuing on the metaphoric expression of play that we're playing, tells you something about how you meet life? Are you leaning forward? Are you avoiding? Are you kind of collapsing in on yourself? Just in what the invitation is, don't change it. Just notice it. Just noticing. And as you're ready, allowing to imagine that there's this little string at the top of your head that begins to pull you up, and your spine gets that support and strengthens. And now there's all this space for your organs. You might want to roll back your shoulders and open your heart. For some of you, that's going to feel really good. For some of you, that's going to be a little confrontational. And all that we're doing right now is noticing what's happening. And I'm just going to invite you to breathe into your intention for being here. Breathe into your intention for being that metaphoric expression of life, mirror, healer, bridge. And imagining that there is all of this love in the world for you that came from throughout this entire life. Some from people you know, some from people who are just really loving. Imagine that you could breathe in all that love in this universe that's here for you through every pore of your body. Feeling it come in through every ounce of your body. And what if we have someone here that heralds the what if? What if you can now just breathe that out, as if that could breathe out through every story that you tell? This way of connecting with the cycle of life. That there are things that you give, as you receive, you can give back. And just breathing into where you are in that cycle of giving and receiving. For some of us, it's really easy to give. For some of us, it's really easy to receive. For some, it's hard to receive. It's hard to give. Just allowing yourself to breathe in all that's being given, all that's being offered, and breathing it out and sharing it. Ahio. Ahi, ahi, ahio. Ahi, 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 ahio. Ahi, ahi, ahio. Ahio. Ahi, ahi, ahio. In this moment when you're all muted, so no one's going to hear you but you, I invite you just to allow your own soul song to come out. Just allowing, hi, hi, feel whatever wants to come out from you today. This isn't about sounding pretty. This is just about being in the pleasure of the song that is you, that wants to emerge in this moment. Just letting whatever it is want to come out. And just feeling the joy and the pleasure of your own resonance. And as you do that, you also might feel your own resistance. You might not feel pleasure in that. You might have a story about why you can't do that. And just allowing your job to be just the noticing. What is the noticing that happens when you're invited to bring your voice into the space? Is it just, yes, gosh, yes? Or is it like, oh, you know? And if you guys can come back and just put a couple of words into the chat box, what happened for you? What happened for you? Sherry was hesitant but willing. Oh, Deborah had a sultry experience. Oh, hi, Deb. Oh, sweet to see you. Fred is humming softly and resonant in grace. Glorious expansion, said Rivas. It felt release, says Shirley. Jennifer was surprised by my raspy voice, but willing to sing. We see willingness here. Is there anyone that was like, oh, hell no, I'm not going to do that? It's all here. The whole experience is with us all. Like, I'm really inviting everything that happened. Tracy says, yes, I belonged more and more to voice clear and deeper. And the cat came. I love that. Melissa, look at that. I got it. I did the Jason thing. Hesitant at first, but then the light was grateful to be expressed. Christine says, me and then I did it, and it was so sweet. I love that expression. Humming softly with resonant grace. Yes. Diana said, when you said you had the universe loves you, I was engulfed in the love of it all. Transformational experience. And there was an unwinding for Reba. Okay. So, we're here for a big game. And part of the big game that we're here for is we're saying if you've entered into the world of sacred storytelling, you've crossed the threshold, you got the ticket, you showed up live, and this moment is about saying, yes, my voice means something. My voice has value. My life is valuable. My stories are gifts. And it might all sound really simple, right? But we're living in this consumer-based world where we're not always told that our life is valuable. We're told that our bank accounts are valuable, our homes are valuable, our cars are valuable. But what about your life and the stories and how that, just 3 words, I saw something on Instagram this morning. This young reporter was interviewing someone, and he said, don't you ever let your fear get the best of you. Always believe in yourself. I think that's what he said, but it changed her life. This like 10 seconds changed her life, and we can do that for each other. And so I'm assuming that you're here because you know that you have something to give. You might not quite know how to do it yet. You might be in the great wondering of it. And so let's play with going into the realm of sacred storytelling. So I'm gonna give you a little presentation today. And some of this is interactive, and I talk more during this time than I normally do. We're going to try to move through a lot. And again, my goal here is to really welcome you into this profound place of sacred storytelling. We think we tell stories, but stories often tell us. They tell us to love or to hate, to see or be seen, and often, too often, stories will saddle us. and they'll ride us and they'll whip us onward and they'll tell us what to do. And we do it without questioning. Maybe you don't do it without questioning, but according to Rebecca, we do it without questioning. The task of learning to be free requires learning to hear those stories, to question those stories, to pause, to hear silence, to name those stories, and then become a storyteller. Rebecca Solnit basically wrote in one paragraph, and I'm going to spend an hour going over. That's why I love starting it with this. But that before we take the threshold of becoming a sacred storyteller, there is a journey that we each must go on. And I'm going to talk about why the journey is valuable and what defines a sacred storyteller. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the global perspective of storytellings and the power of words. We're going to go into what is a story. Let's go on the same page. What is a sacred story? I'm going to talk to you about what it means to be a conscious creator and how to use story as a tool for healing. A little bit of my story. I learned the language of storytelling. I didn't realize I was learning the language of storytelling. I grew up on a farm in Vermont. I was allowed to roam free and go wild. And I didn't realize that that connection with nature, which was really bringing me into connection to my own true nature, would be the foundational principle of what I would call upon as a storyteller. And I learned that story, as Sean Kane says, is born from the earth. Myths are the earth speaking out loud. I learned the responsibility of storytelling, that what goes out into the world comes back. When I was 17 years old and my best friend committed suicide. And up until that point, I had moved around a lot in life and I was looking for a place, I was often, if you guys have ever been the new kid in school a lot, it's not very easy. And books had become my sanctuary, like my safe place. And when all of a sudden I was dealing with this completely not understandable grief and loss, books couldn't be my safe place, but the place of story was. And that's when I really took on what it was to work with story as a way to make meaning. I came to it in the most honest of ways, as they say. That play that I wrote about Sheila and about being with her life and being with her death turned out to win a place in a playwriting festival, and I got to see it on the stage. And what I didn't realize was that as I shared my grief, other people would be coming to me, and I would be hearing their grief as well. And so that's when I say I learned the responsibility that comes with storytelling, that what we put out matters. And it continues to live on long past the few moments that we spend telling it. I learned the business of storytelling. I went straight to New York City out of high school. I studied with Sandy Meisner at the Neighborhood Playhouse. I went to Williamstown Theater. I got to work off Broadway. And I learned that the business of storytelling and that world was not for me. I didn't want to spend my life speaking other people's words. I was not cut out for a business that had that much rejection in it. And I really wanted to go live my life, not have my life defined by other people's, whims. I learned very soon that I wanted to author my own story. I wanted to be a playwright. I wanted to be a writer. And I continued down this path that led me into understanding, what was it to take care of Earth? What was it to take care of people? What was it to take care of self? And I was really interested in the weaving of those three things. I got a master's in social work, and I had an initiatory experience, which I might tell you guys at the end of all this, that transformed my life and really did bring me to you, but that also took me out of the world of working as a therapist and into the world of media making. And I ended up working with Al Gore, and I helped produce his television show, the Green Channel at his television network. And I got to learn another really powerful lesson, that good intentions are not enough. And if you don't understand how stories work on human consciousness, you can do great damage with good intentions. And I began to see, looking at these television networks, how powerful the stories are. And that when I was looking at where does change happen, it wasn't actually happening in the realm of news and information. It was happening in the realm of stories. So that gave me my golden ticket out of the media world and into the realm of story. I was gifted a really big story to carry. It took me about a decade to learn how to tell it. And in that process, it really led me into a deep, deep journey into the mystery of storytelling, including in the Bay Area and having kinds of experiences of having story ceremonies and really looking at what happens when we come into a group field and we start working with the old stories and our personal stories. And all I can say is I started to realize, oh, this is so much bigger than me. And this is not new. This is old. This is so old that in ancient Greece, every single person had to go through theater training. Like now in some countries, everyone has to go through military training. In ancient Greece, everyone had to go through theater training because they understood that those skills were what gave you access to the most exalted expression of being a human. And so it is that relationship with working with story as a transformational art, both on the political side and the environmental side and the personal side, that brings me to you today. I was really driven by a big question, and that big question was, where does change happen? Where does change happen? And that question really began to drive a lot of what brought me into the center of story. So let's start with the building blocks of change, which are the words. Hawaiians say that words can raise enough energy to slow the world or set it into motion. You know, these are these illustrations are created by Mark Smith, who is an alumni from the School for Sacred Storytelling, and it's one of my greatest pleasures to get to play with and collaborate with creative souls. Sicilians say that words poke holes in the universe. I always think about that when the temperature starts to rise a little bit and you get a little angry and realizing that no word can be taken back. No word can be taken back. There's actually a word in physics that talks about the power of a word to stay, that every word spoken in every place stays there forever. I was thinking about that when you go to really kind of ugly truck stops, you can sing a song or bring a poem. That will be there too. Australians say that the stories of the past need to be sung to the present so that the future can exist. The Maoris say words don't describe a thing, that they are the thing. In Japanese, there's a word called kotodama. It means word spirit. And it talks about how that the original divine spirit of the world, it's there before it even enters into our thought waves. And so this is really talking about that words are alive and they have the power to create. You can go to the Bible. In the beginning, there was the word. You can go to abracadabra, one of the most ancient words on our planet. It means I create as I speak. It's so basic, but how many of us get to live by these principles every moment of the day? I'm from the East Coast, and I don't know how many East Coasters are from here, but we're kind of like I'm from the Northeast, so like we have this sport. Well, I know, but Deborah, you're from down south, so you guys are nicer than us. In the Northeast, we kind of drink cynical. It's in the water. Cynical. It's a spirit. It's a spirit. And so as we do that, Laura, can you please keep your stuff on mute? I don't know if you're in a pocket or something that you keep popping off over here in the background. Thank you. But because we're so cynical, it's like when I first hearing, the glass half full, that whole expression, I thought that was a bunch of new age, blah, blah, LA stuff. Now I live in LA, but, it was hearing this, it was learning this that really grounded me in that no, this is not new age. This is old age. This is ancient. That all the ancient religions agree that the world was sung, spoken, and chanted into existence. The world was sung, spoken, and chanted into existence. I love AI. It's so fun, especially as a creative. wondering, why is that what happens when we give our capacity to speak to somebody else? What happens? Magic words. In the very earliest time when both people and animals lived on Earth, a person could become an animal if he wanted to, and an animal could become a human being. And sometimes they were people and sometimes animals, and there was no difference. All spoke the same language. That was a time when words were like magic. The human mind had mysterious powers. A word spoken by chance might have strange consequences. In the waiting room, love. I'm so sorry, but you keep coming off, and it's really hard for concentration. Thank you. Um, isn't that the thing these times? The interruption. How do we handle the interruptions? How do we be with the waves of life as it comes towards us? And I just heard somebody that like how you meet the problem is what defines the problem, is how you live the problem, and how do we get to just be in that flow and hold a sanctuary where it's so rare that we get to have a place where we can focus and listen. And my intention for this is not for you just to be listening to the words or looking at the PowerPoint, but for really having this moment, this precious moment, to be listening for what comes alive inside of you from this. As storytellers, we get to ignite life in other people. We get to ignite the stories in other people. We are part of the cycle of life of keeping it going. So may our sanctuaries be strong, and may you know how to hold that space. It's one of the main things that we talk about, and that is, how do you create a space where people can catch a story? Not only just catch a story, but allow it to come alive in their consciousness and speak to them. So back in the day, going back to the Inuit days, the human mind had mysterious powers. A word spoken by chance might have strange consequence. It would suddenly come alive, and what people wanted to happen could happen, and all you had to do was say it. Nobody could explain it. That's just how it was. That's translated by the Inuit and by Edward Field. Again, it's not new age, it's old age. So what does a story do? There's a lot of different things that it does. And I want to give you an opportunity just to talk about, like, what is a story to you? Let's pop out here for a second. And if you could put it um, into the chat box, like, what's a story to you? What does it do? What is it? What is a story? Fred saying a story is a way to connect one spirit to another. Right. There's this thing that's happening. We're gonna play with that. You just set me up for this, Fred, in such a beautiful way. I've thought a lot about what a story is, and we're going to talk a lot about it. But since Fred just said it's one way for one spirit to connect with another, is this body. Look at your beautiful body. It's such a miracle. Do you ever get to pause for a second, just be like, wow, I'm a miracle? I had that moment the other day, and it wasn't like an ego moment. It was just like one of those like aha moments where like, oh my God, it's a freaking miracle that like the seed got planted in our moms, and she gave birth and we made it through and we're alive, and wow, and we're like, life can get so weird that we can forget that like we're literally miracles walking on legs. And so anyway, here we have this miraculous body, and there's a soul that lives inside of it, right? And stories are a vehicle for spirit. This is one way of looking at it. You can take it or leave it. The stories are a vehicle for spirit. And so the spirit of joy, the spirit of hate, the spirit of love, the spirit of disconnection can live in a story. And look, we're seeing this, the political race. Aren't they having a great time whirling and dishing out stories left and right? I was just thinking today, I was like, they're pretty much saying the both things about the same, about the other's candidates. It's amazing. Like it's so cool in terms of a storyteller. You're like, wow. So, but if we're looking at that the stories, that the spirit of a story can live through us, and that we can share that spirit with another person, that we can bring joy into the room and share it with someone who's grieving, that we can open up the space of grief for someone else that might have it but can't access it. But when we walk it in and we allow it to come alive in a story. So these stories, it's like there's a lot of science about how we connect. And there's this thing called neural coupling that they've learned about. I used to think that connecting, how we connected, was super magical, in this space, that you could feel the energy and you could feel the connection, and you could just things that you can't even explain would start to happen. And Princeton says, no, it's not magical. It's pure science. It's called neural coupling. And it's one of the things that we're doing. And so when I am, creating this image of once upon a time at the bottom of the ocean rested a white whale. And on that whale sat a girl with a big, tall red hat. How many of you saw that image? Okay. So we traveled locations. We did a little bit of reality bending. We created a whole new reality. You just went with it. The right lobe of my brain started going dee, 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 got super active as the image started to create. But guess what? The right lobe of your brain also did the dee, 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 and started to activate and create an image. We literally co-created a whole new reality together. So when we talk about how do cults form, how did the agreement around money form? Money is such a great story. It's a story, right? We all agree, you know? And so when we look at that and we look at how powerful we are with our words, now the question of, in terms of discernment, what kind of storyteller will you be? And what kind of stories will you allow to be planted into the garden of your consciousness? I'm not talking about don't lower my vibe with your bad vibe thing. I'm talking about being able to watch the highway and decide what stories you want to take in. Stories are the bridge that connect bodies and dimensions, said Jennifer. Yeah, Diana's saying a sharing of my soul, my love, and my wisdom, a chance to make a difference and a connection. Yeah. Well, a lot is saying it's an excuse. Oh, yeah, I can get that, right? You can whip up a story, and rather than just say, I'm sorry, or let's say, excuse me, or just be accountable and responsible for your actions, you can whip up a whole story, right? How many of us have gotten not so impressed by that? Tracy says a story links us. You guys are a lot on connection today. Sherry is talking about a powerful story moves me from my head to my heart. Ah, that's great. And it lights my imagination and envision of a different possibility. I'm seeing like a whole lot of movement in your energy as you talk about that, Sherry. And Ruthie says, stories somehow fill me. They bring me richness and value. As invaluable stories speaks to me on a heart level, always meaningful, right? So when we think about stories, it's like they do all of this. Their story is a verb, right? They do something. They take us on a journey. There's always a beginning, middle, and end. There's some aspect of cycle. They're also can be considered as an operating system. They teach us beliefs. They instill values. They'll often teach us, the right way of living, as when we learn stories as kids in particular. They'll also inform or limit our imagination on what's possible. Think about the television shows that you grew up with, what roles you're supposed to play, who were you supposed to be in relationships, what kind of job were you supposed to get, when were you supposed to buy a house, like what are all these different things, and did they come through the stories that surrounded you? And maybe you are living in those stories, and maybe you hopped out of one of those stories, but isn't it fun just to start noticing? Now, when I was walking through the canyon, I'm really lucky. I've had some great teachers, and some of them are in human form, and some of them are in the form of trees and rocks in a big mountain that I live on in the canyon. And Topanga is very chatty. It's got a lot to say. And I was out for a walk one morning, and it was like, operating system. That's a disgusting way to describe a story. I'm like, yeah, but it gets the point across. And Topanga was like, no, it's ridiculous. And I'm like, well, if you know so much more, like, give me the goods. And I swear to God, it was the trees of Topanga that said this, or maybe it was a rock, I don't know. But it said, a story is a library of the soul. A story is a library of the soul. And as I listen to that, and maybe you all hear different things as I say that, that it's a way for our evolutionary experience to be shared. And that when we really start to tell our story, it's not just our human experience of the facts and information of what happened. It's a constellation of a journey. It's a whole. And so it's something very, very different than, I did this, this, and this. Deborah says, a story is a tragic life that we choose to live and experience all the heartache and pain in order to learn how to expand and grow from those experiences to reclaim our eternal power and who we really are. Well, that's one way of being a story. Yeah. Um, what's a sacred story? Deborah, you're laughing. What's a sacred story? What makes a story sacred? It's a sacred story. It's transformational, right? You don't leave the same after hearing a sacred story. It's a special story that can't be told again, says Elaine. Oh. And I think Sherry's saying that there's reverence, there's honor, there's a tribute, there's truth. Do you guys know that truth is a carpentry term? It's a carpentry term, and it means from A to B. It means it's like a straight line. I love that. That means that you can create a circle of people and you can put a bunch of stuff in the center. And no matter where they're sitting there, they can all say what they're seeing, and they're all going to be in their truth, and their truth will be right. I that kind of helps me a little bit when I start speaking with people that have really different views than I have. It's gotten me to be like, you can have your truth. I don't have to get in the way of your truth. It's just your perspective. That's great. That's what you see. So I like to be reverent of this word truth, because what I love about stories is that we can have really big stories with lots of different truths inside of them. It gives us great capacity. It gives us a bigger room to live in and a bigger team to play on. Um, Comes from the source that can't be bought or sold. I love that, Jennifer. Fred is saying that story has only its present moment to live in. Oh, right. I hate seeing recordings of storytelling, right? It's like, Fred, I know Fred talks story a lot, and like there's something that happens in the room and there's an energy and everybody can feel it. Tracy's nodding, right? We can feel, Diana knows, you can feel it. And then you watch the recording and you're like, and it's like the spirit is not going to be recorded. It's like, you can't, it does not record the magic that happens or that energetic connection that we can't see. Colleen talks about that it moves us in unexplainable ways. Ruth is saying that it brings value to one's life, that touches us deeply. And Melissa's saying that holds ancient and innate wisdom. I love that. And Deborah's saying that sacred story alters perspective. So sacred story, I think a lot of us have different definitions of sacred story when we really use it. And I'll share how I've come to understand story as sacred. And what it means in this corner of the universe is that when we're saying that something is sacred, we're saying, I see the life in you. I honor the divine in you. And so when I'm saying it's a sacred story, I'm saying, I see you as a living being. I see the spirit in you. And that when I come into relationship with a sacred story, it's not just me, Leah Lamb, and my ego about what I think I should tell or who I should convince or what my truth is. It's coming into collaboration with a spirit and allowing the spirit of the muse, of the divine, of the unseen world, of the ancestors to come alive and be animated through the heartbeat of a living soul in physical form and get to walk and be shared among us through story. These beings are so powerful and they do something and we can feel it. And when we talk about a sacred story, the key defining factor, as I understand it, as a sacred story is here in service to life. When you hear a sacred story, your nervous system's going to relax. You're going to feel all open-hearted. Maybe you're going to want to become the best version of yourself. You're going to want to get up tomorrow morning, quit coffee, quit sugar, and do extra 10 push-ups. Something in you is like, yes, I want to come alive, says Riva. And I feel more alive. I've been given more. I've been given a little juice. I got my injection of C or whatever it is. It's like you got it. You got it. Now, that sounds fine. And I'm not to say that, a sacred story doesn't have to make you laugh. It doesn't have to make you cry. It can take you to the bowels of the worst aspects of Earth. Melissa said that one of the things she does is she's a mirror. It's like a storyteller. Sometimes we're mirrors. I just went to an exhibit of the Nova tragedy in LA, and they walked us through. And let me tell you, those were some hard stories to receive. But it ended in a form of redemption and of hope and of commitment to keep life going. They told the story in commitment to life. And so when we look at these stories, we can tell hard stories. We can tell stories that people don't want to hear. We can be the bearers of a truth. We can shed light on the dark places. Our job as a storyteller is to realize that we are guides. We are guides through the depths, the darks, through the valleys, up the mountain, over, and we can take people to those places, but they'll only go if they trust us to bring them home. So it is such a responsibility. It's such a big responsibility as a storyteller to be able to bring someone home to themselves. They can keep going. So that's fine and dandy, whatever, sacred story. Okay, so it's easier sometimes to understand in the contrast. So a zombie story. Anyone got any good examples of a zombie story? When I think of a zombie story, it's sort of like a Death Eater, you feel a little dead inside. When I get up the next day, you're kind of over it all. People suck. The end of the world's coming. What does it matter? These stories, that sometimes that's after you just feel kind of hopeless and helpless. One example that I have of a zombie story is Jaws. And when we go to understand a story, we often want to understand who its creator was and what they were in service to. This is an easy way to really understand it. And, I'll go fast through this little piece. But Peter Benchley wrote Jaws. Steven Spielberg made it into a movie. And, you can imagine what they were in service to. And when they made that movie, it was the first movie that was ever filmed in the open ocean. So you have to also put yourself, you got to be a time traveler and go back and realize how innocent people's minds were. There's a quote by Leslie Mormon Silko, "You might not speak old stories, but old stories speak you." And the language of story is symbol, metaphor, and archetype. They say that metaphor is the language of spirit, and it speaks to us through stories. And so when they film that on the open ocean, what does the open ocean represent? Our consciousness. Jaws, the big prop broke. They were smart filmmakers. They just took pieces of it. And so then people started to associate the symbol of the shark with humans' greatest fear since the first story ever written is the fear of death. And there began to be this massive fear of these keystone species and an agreement to kill them off. Their health, and lively wellness is connected to our health and wellness. And more people die each year from coconuts than from shark attacks. Coconuts falling out of trees. And when Peter Benchley learned about the impact of the story that he wrote, he spent the rest of his life as an ocean guardian. So I say that as a cautionary tale because I don't think that there's bad people out there telling bad stories. But I think more now than ever, when we have these tools to amplify, when we have these tools to connect, now it's time to really remember our responsibility as storytellers and what it means to be conscious creators. And that's one of the things that drives me and inspires me to come and be with you today. I'm going to bring you back into the little realm of our presentation because it's so fun to be over there. And it just takes me a second though. I know that there's got to be a easier, faster way to do this, and I just haven't figured it out yet. But here we go. So, this piece of really taking a moment to wonder, like, who are you as a storyteller? Sorry, we're going to go through all of this. We already went through all this, but look at that. Okay. And so right now, you get to be here and you get to really think about who you are as a storyteller. What's your storytelling archetype? Are you the great mother? Are you a fierce initiator? Are you got a little collie and you're going to kind of eat away at the old broken stories? Are you a healer? Are you going to actually come and look at the, Sleeping Beauty? Okay, it's got a lot to teach, but maybe it wants to be modernized and grow up. And I think of stories like that, in terms of that stories are like trees. They want to grow. They want the roots to go into the earth. They want a great big canopy and they want to keep changing. And so one of the ways that you can look at your life and think, is there a story that I'm telling over and over and over again in the same way? And I never feel good when I tell it. That's a great place to go and be like, oh, maybe there's a story here that wants to grow, that wants to change, that wants to. Sorry, I guess I already went through all this. Yeah, sorry guys. So I'm going to leave you with this part, and then we're gonna come out of our course time together. We talked about what is a storyteller, and in Japan, they have an understanding. It's the person of the falling word. In Welsh, it's the recounter. Right? It's a mathematical term. We're beginning to hear math, keeping tally, tale. It's a guide. In Africa, it's a griot, and their role was to preserve the genealogy and oral traditions. In Celtic cultures, it was the bard. And oftentimes the people romanticize about the bard. They're like, oh, yeah, you're a bard. I'm like, oh, don't call me a bard. Because the bards had to sing for their dinner. They had to actually say what others wanted them to hear. So we really want to understand the history of these roles and what they were and how they want to evolve in our times. In ancient Africa and in Celtic lands, storytellers were magicians. They were initiates. They understood the underlying nature of reality and hidden forces. The old Celtic bards could bring out welts on the body with a string of syllables. They could heal sickness with a tale. They could breathe life into a dying civilization with the magic of a story. To a thriving civilization, they could bring transformation with the potency of myth. In the old days of kings and leaders, warriors and knights listened to epic tales and drew from them courage and inspiration. It's Ben Okri. Ben Okri wrote an amazing little book called The Mystery Feast. I can't recommend it enough. So storytellers, when they really knew what they were, when they were a valued aspect of society, and where you knew your storyteller, even in movies, we don't know our storytellers, right? We know the actors, we know the producers, we know the directors. We don't always know who created that story. And they knew that they could be healers. So this is what I come to today with that great big question. Sorry, I'm gonna move us through all this. You know? I think we got to a lot of it. But what I want to introduce you to is the journey of a storyteller. And you might be, something might be kicking up alive in you. And I really want to invite you to just consider what's come alive for you today in our time of being together. If you could put something in the chat box, what were you feeling then? What's coming alive for you now? How do you see yourself as a storyteller? Are there stories you want to bring healing to? Or are there communities that you want to bring healing to? Are there stories that you want to change? Are there stories that you are here to tell? Maybe the muse is whispering in your ear. Maybe you're here to carry the old stories forward. I'd love to hear what's coming alive for you in this time. One of the things I've learned in terms of holding a space for sacred storytellers is there's a journey that we go on. And one of them is we court the muse. We get that juicy, hot relationship with the muse where she's feeding us and nourishing us, and we're feeding and nourishing her, and there's a lot of inspiration. We want to make sure that we've got a clear psychic space that we can hear and see and spot the stories, and we can identify the critic and the judge, from all the different aspects, that we can get that inspiration. And when we talk about the inspiration, some of it, I think it was Melissa talked about that, our sacred stories full of the wisdoms of the ancients in there, and they really do. Our ancestors can speak to us through story. Now, there's a part of me that knew this in my bones as being a storyteller, that there are many times when I'll share a story and people go, oh, wow. And I'm just like, I'm just a reporter. I'm just reporting in from the other side. It's this, what it is to be able to open your vessel, to listen, to receive, and then to share generously your stories. But it's hard not to feel a little out there when you talk like that. And then I heard, I got to read something from the ancient Kabbalah, and it was known and it was heard as a secret teaching that was kept secret, that the imagination is the doorway to God. So I don't like to use the word God. I use the word source or spirit or ancestors or muse. I think I want to invite you to not let a word or your relationship to it stall your own imagination or capacity to be able to open to the greater stories of your own life that want to live through you. And what I understand is that when we come to the gateway to tell a story, it stops being just our story, my story, and it starts being our story. And it's that journey that this is an invitation for. And so that idea of that when we are able to tell our story, we're talking about the human condition. We're talking about the experiences that we all go through. And we get to tell them through the lens of our story, knowing that we're in a universal experience. And all kinds of things can happen in that space. So we go back, we learn the old stories, and we're going to do this in essence. We look within the stories that created you, or those stories that formed your belief systems. We'll understand who you are as a storytelling archetype. We'll stand in the power of your gift. And it's so fun to stand in the power of your gift when you know that you're there, the gift. It's not about, oh, do people want to hear me? It's like, wow, you've got something to give. People are yearning for it. You can learn how to change a story and the ethics of changing a story. You learn how to alchemize your personal story, those hard parts, the parts where sometimes the energy can get stuck. Life initiated you into medicine that can be given away. And then you get to that place of offering your gift. So these are the different archetypes that you might see in yourself. And you might just take a look there and see, are any of those yours? And there are so many different ways that we can integrate our stories. We see it out in the world, truth and reconciliation gatherings. That was really a learning of how to tell our story in a really healing way. We learn it and see it through witnessing circles, through initiatory processes, through social impact campaigns or documentaries, from sitting in council. All these places are made of stories. So this is the end of our class today. And this was really designed to open the door, to inspire you, to introduce you into this world of sacred storytelling. And I know that some of you have already stepped into the realm of our next course, which is the Alchemy of Story. Ruthie is in it. She's in our certification program. And what I'm going to do now is take some time for, oh, Tracy's there. Tracy's in it too. Um, for anyone who wants to explore a little bit more and hear some details about what we're going to be doing, and we're about to enter, we're opening the doors into the, bye Riva, we're opening the doors into the castle of the Alchemy of Story. And the Alchemy of Story is a program that's designed to really take you on a personal journey where you can alchemize all your stories into these 5 different kinds of stories. And so I'm going to show you a little bit about the program so you can see how it works. And then we'll be going on our way. Are there any more questions that people have before I go into that? I'm just seeing Diane is here to heal and celebrate the earth. Yes. You're welcome, Sherry. Yeah, this reigniting of the flame. And it is this togetherness. I really want to honor that. It's it's like, I know it's been mostly one person speaking, but it's our energy together that is what inspires what's happening. And we hopefully you're all on gallery view so you get to see everybody. And it is this kind of experience. Okay. No more questions. Okay, we'll take a deep breath. And I'm going to share something with you that I am so excited to share. Um, you're going to see something that most people haven't seen yet. And it's the brand new world. We're in the process of making it all more accessible for you guys to understand what we're doing. So we just redesigned our whole website. This is what you won't see this live, but this is what's happening. So we're really looking at how do you, it's like I'm old age. It's really hard for me to do this new age thing. But when I was working with this marketing guy, it was kind of great. He's like, it's all about living your greatest story. And I'm like, you're right, it is. And for me, it's like I get really inspired by this opportunity to be the greatest expression of yourself, to play the best role that's possible. And that's one of the things that we're doing. I'm not going to play this video for you because you can watch it later, but this is the program. And this is really about getting you will be so entrenched in the realm of story by the end of this. You will have so much experience telling stories, different kinds of stories, that you will get to understand, learn the myths of this time. You'll get to feel yourself as a magical being, and you'll have many opportunities to share your medicine. The Alchemy of Story, it's designed for 2 different kinds of people, and I'll go into that. It's designed for, some people say, I just want to learn how to tell my own stories, and I want to work with it as a story, as a healing tool for myself. And some people are saying, you know what, I am at the place in my life where I really want to support others in terms of how to work with story as a tool for healing, and I'm in a place where I want to get a certification. And so I'll talk more about that. What makes this super unique in terms of, I've been teaching online for over 7 years, and I've taught many big programs. And my pleasure is when people get a really rich, full experience. And so what I've discovered is when we create these short modules that are like 6 weeks long, we take a little break, and we come back and you have 6 weeks off. You get to have an experience, a beginning to end experience where you really learned one concrete tool. And there's certain things that happen in every single one of those modules. And every one you're going to have 3 guest teachers, and one of them will bring an Indigenous person who will bring you a way of living story from an oral tradition. So you'll get a transmission of someone who's still living as a storied being. You're also going to get to experience a healer, someone who works with stories, a tool for healing. And then you'll also work with someone who just teaches you really great writing and storytelling skills. So it's like that's the trifecta, the transmission of old stories, the working with stories, a healing modality, and the like concrete technical skills of becoming a better storyteller. The things that we get to have in this that I think is really worth mentioning, and I know that a bunch of you can speak to this, we have so much fun in this space. I never talk this much. It's really about you guys talking. You work in small groups. You have an opportunity to work with groups outside of class. I know that there's groups that are still meeting 6 years later, which I just wets my whistle. And you'll have a lot of different kinds of interactive exercises. We do meditations. You'll come out with many story prompts, and you'll come out with stories to tell. And you'll have come out having gotten to practice them in a really supportive environment. And that's one of the things that makes us really special. We have a pretty awesome field of agreements, and those agreements around what is it to have an online sorry, not online, to have, what is it to create a healing story sanctuary where you can really push at the edges of your own comfort zones and a really safe place to have your stories come alive. So when you leave, you feel confident, and telling stories to other people, it can be joyful and not have any anxiety or blah, blah, blah. You've worked all that out in our space, and then you get to just be in the fun and delight of it. This is a 10-month program, and you can do it in 2 different ways. You can do it live and in person. This is the first time I'm offering live and in person in Topanga Canyon. I haven't done that before. It's a new experience for me in this post-COVID world. Or you can do it online. And I'll say that we have a robust online community that's part of this. So our very first, okay, you guys, I'm so sorry, but these are not your exact teachers. So I'll come back and show you your exact teachers. We're still building the site. So I just realized that was a slight issue with this, but you can see what it is. It's a little bit easier. So the very first module is Essence. We start on September 24th for those of us who are online. And I am so excited about this module. After 7 years, it took me to realize this is where we have to begin. We've got to begin with your roots. And we look at what that means to be with the roots of your story in 2 different ways. One is part of your lineage story. When you know how to tell the story of your lineage and have time to even find it, you get to actually begin to call on the source and the power of your lineage and have that live through your life, the way through how you tell your story. Some of you have probably been doing this. Some of you might not have ever done this. So that's one of the ways that we'll begin. We also begin by learning origin stories of the land that you live on. So you're going to get to have more opportunities to get intimate with the stories of your land and of the indigenous origin stories that were born there. You'll also get to jump into your mythic imagination. And this is a place where we're going to start coming to the source of the source of your soul story. So we're going to have many opportunities to talk about your human story, but how oftentimes you get to talk about your soul story. And that's where we're going to start working out your mythic imagination and tapping into that. So Essence is a 6-week course. We begin in 2 weeks. We'll take a couple of weeks off, and then we'll come back for wisdom stories. This is a course that is where we'll come into the place where did your stories get stuck? Where did life initiate you? Where is there a challenging moment? And can we take that issue, and can we help it live you into becoming a wisdom keeper? You have a story to tell. You've got classes, you've got lessons to share. You have something to teach, and it can come through how you tell some of the hardest times in your life. They don't have to be miserable bummer stories. There can be humor and fun and delight and who you are now, because you are not the person that they happen to. And so you'll go through a very transformational journey in that. We'll go and we'll start talking about medicine stories. That's a term that's used by a lot of people. I think people, again, have different ideas of what it means to them. I understand medicine stories as that when you actually can use a story as a form of prescription. Perhaps you have longing to heal a broken heart. Perhaps there is some life experience that you want to have, but you haven't gotten to have it yet. Perhaps depression has taken over. How can you engage the creative force that comes through story to bring you the exact healing that you need for that moment? It's a very unique kind of way of being with story, and it's super fun. This is the one story that's for you. You might never tell it to another person outside of our class. This is your medicine story. But sometimes your medicine story can turn out to be medicine stories for other people. Then this is the alchemy of change. This is a really fun module. This is all about using your voice out in the world. So you care about something and you want to know how to talk story. It's not about just getting loud and yelling about your opinions. It's how can you tell a story that could actually open someone's heart and open their consciousness and give them another way of seeing the world. So you'll get to work on something that you deeply care about and learn how to talk a story about it. And then our final one will be ceremony. And ceremony is really, it's a class. It's unlike any other. Diana, I think you went through our very first ceremony. I'm trying to remember. Um, and it's really designed to support who you are as a sacred storyteller, as a conscious creator, and also help you manage the energetics that happen in the space of story. How do you tend to the projections? How do you tend to holding an energetic field? How do you create a space where your story can be caught and listened to? These are some of the more esoteric aspects that we're always doing when we're talking story, but we break it down and we give you hard technical skills to put into practice. So that is the Alchemy of Story program. And I am so excited to jump into that with you. We also have, for those of you who oh, look, Fred, it's you. I don't know if Fred's still with us. But for those of you who want to take this and work this with other people and really stand as a guardian to help other people learn how to tell their stories, there's a certification program. And that is for people who you have a practicum. We meet more times. We meet once more each month. We practice more. We work more on your facilitation skills. We also will dive into who you are as a storyteller, how to present yourself as a guide and teacher. You'll have an opportunity to do your kind of mini TED Talks on what is story as a healing modality. And then you'll also have an opportunity to do a practicum. So for some people who are working on their own programs, it's an opportunity to practice and get a lot of feedback and support. So those are those programs. And what I would say is that if you think that this is for you, I would strongly encourage you to click on the link that I'm about to give you and to schedule a discovery session. And what I'll say is that here, I'm getting this link for you. I can't talk and chew gum at the same time. This link will bring you straight to the calendar, and it will ask you some questions about who you are and what kind of storyteller you want to be, and if you're interested in the certification program or just the regular program. And it's a way of really deciding and getting a little bit more contact on if this story is for you, if this program is for you. But what I'll say, and I'll just end it with this, look, it's 12:12, is that if you are looking for something that will give you one of the most powerful tools to connect to yourself, to your community, to your own soul journey, if you're looking for tools that will really help you be able to move with definitive confidence about what it is to author your own life, what it is to be able to call on some of the most ancient tools that we have to really, I hate to see the word empower, but it's a real thing. Oh, look at that little one. Hi, little one. If you want to be playing a role in our future, and I don't say that lightly, it's like this is, the stories that we tell now are defining the future. So this is a program. What we do is for anyone who registers in the next 48 hours, you get a special early bird discount because our new site hasn't launched. So you'll get a chance to come in, kick all the tires, blow on the whistles. So it's a unique moment to walk in the door. That discount will end in 48 hours. So I encourage you to schedule a discovery session if you are curious. And otherwise, I am complete for today. And again, if you have questions, I'll stay on a little bit longer. I'm going to turn off the recording and away we can go. And you can all take yourselves off mute and give a little hoot and a holler because it's so nice to give a little hoot and a holler.